Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Mystery Theory. Today I am going to continue with the Miss Dover series, where I'm sharing a new video every day for the month of October. Now, since the beginning of this series, we're talking about monsters amongst us and people going after guys going after women and children. We covered Jack the Ripper, Ted Bundy, and really a series of serial murderers that looked for victims who were trusting, available, and vulnerable. If you missed those videos, they will be linked on the top of the screen and in the description box down below. You'll end up with 31 videos by the end of October, so you'll have a plethora of different series inside this month-long series. Now, today we are going to kind of flip the page, literally, to killers and captors, kidnappers that range from trusted authority to politically motivated strangers. I mean, there is a difference between who did these things, but we're gonna kind of connect them and compare them. What do they have in common? So I hope that you join me for this mini series and we can learn something from it. Now, today I am going to talk about the baby mourned by millions. Journalist H.L. Mencken described the 1932 kidnapping of Charles Linbergh's son as the biggest story since the resurrection. There you have it. Now, I'm going to tell you the story and a little bit of why it became this. On March 1st, 1932, the famous aviator Charles Linbergh and his wife Anne were at home in their secluded New Jersey mansion when Charles heard an odd noise. He shrugged it off as the snapping of the slats from an orange crate in the kitchen. But a little while later, when the baby's nurse went to check on the 20-month-old Charles Linbergh Jr., the crib was empty. Charles ran upstairs to search for Charles Jr. and noticed muddy footprints and an open window in the nursery. He grabbed a rifle and hurried out into the moonlit woods. The police were summoned and soon found a homemade ladder grounds of the Linbergh's home. A ransom note was on a windowsill. The message was it had a lot of grammatical errors and misspellings. For example, the child is in good care, G-U-D-E, leading investigators to believe that the kidnapper might be an immigrant or somebody maybe that never learned how to write or read. Now, let's talk about what happened right after the news of the kidnapping, later described by the journalist that I mentioned in the beginning, Mencken, as the biggest story since the resurrection, swept the country. Readers eager to follow every single development in this case were captivated. At one point, President Herbert Hoover issued a statement saying he would, quote, move heaven and earth to find the stolen child. New Jersey state officials offered $25,000 for the return of little Lindy. The family added another $50,000 to their reward. The Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, began working on the case. 8 days after the abduction, a 72-year-old retired teacher and Bronx native, John, contacted the Linberghs. There are different accounts on what the sequence of events were like, but John told the Linberghs that he had published a letter in a local newspaper offering to act as a third person, somebody who would help in the case. He said that he had received a reply and also had been sent the baby's sleeping suit by mail. The Linberghs confirmed the outfit belonged to their son and agreed to let this guy communicate with the abductor and pay the ransom. On the night of April 2nd, 1932, John and Charles recorded the serial numbers on $50,000 in ransom money. They drove to St. Raymond's Cemetery, where John was to meet a contact for the kidnapper, while Linbergh waited in the car. John said he turned over the bills to an unknown cab driver and was given a note that supposedly revealed the baby's location. But shocking, it turned out to be false. More than a month later, on May 12th, a truck driver and his assistant pulled over a few miles from the Linbergh's house. They needed to relieve themselves in the woods, and one of the guys found the decomposed body of a toddler whose skull had been fractured. The remains were soon identified as the body of Charles Jr. City, much of it along the Lexington Avenue subway route. Eventually, a bill was traced to a gas station where the manager had recorded the license plate of a suspicious customer. He was identified as Bruno Richard Chapman, a German immigrant with a criminal record who lived in the Bronx. At the time of his arrest, this guy, let me get his first name, Bruno, had one of the ransom bills on his possession. Among the evidence collected at Chapman's apartment was a notebook with a sketch of the latter. John, remember the guy that offered to help and delivered the ransom money? His address and phone number were written on a wall. The most damning evidence were the missing floorboards in his attic, not John's but Bruno's, which matched the wood of the ladder that was used to kidnap Charles Jr. His handwriting also matched that of the ransom notes. Now, this alleged kidnapper, John Bruno, claimed that he was innocent and that a friend and business partner had left him the money. But he was sentenced to death by a New Jersey court, and he was electrocuted on April 3rd, 1936. Now, this was a very popular case that ended in a horrible tragedy for a baby. There are lots of pictures. This case with Anne holding her son. Pictures of the baby himself and the poster with the wanted information for the whereabouts of Charles Jr. There's also a picture around of the letter that was, or the paper that wrote with a misspelling, baby taken good care of, look for instructions Saturday, if police get too close, look out. Now, you're probably thinking, well, case closed, that's it. This guy, Bruno, was the one who did it, and he was killed. That's the end, but there were some doubts after the fact. Okay, and the question of, was Bruno actually innocent? He refused to confess and was sent to the electric chair, even though he continued to claim that he didn't do it. His case seemed to be open and shut, but following his execution, facts, okay, not theories, but facts emerged that called the verdict into question. And those some are going to be the things that I'm going to share and kind of wrap up this video. New York Times reporter Tom Cassidy revealed that he had scrawled on John's phone, the guy that helped deliver the money. disclose the experts' findings. So even though the ladder was made with floorboards from Bruno's house, the fingerprints that they found did not match Bruno's. And finally, witnesses who claim to have seen Bruno on the Linbergh's property the day before the kidnapping were later discredited. One was partially blind, and the other labeled as chronic liars. And they only came out saying that they saw Bruno there after the reward money was offered. Things didn't stop there. Bruno's wife sued the state of New Jersey twice for the wrongful execution of her husband. The suit was dismissed both times. So, the biggest story since the resurrection, according to the journalist Mencken, really left people wondering a lot of things that in some cases are not even questioned. There was a lot of physical evidence and a lot of things that pointed to Bruno. Yet, the placement of Bruno in the property was really questionable because people were interested in the reward, and maybe the police didn't do their homework, or maybe even the defense lawyer didn't do his homework. I think it would have been pretty easy to find out that one of the witnesses was a pathological liar and that the other witness was partially blind. I don't think you'd have to do a full-on investigation just to come up with that conclusion. Anyways, it left a big question mark, and a lot of people believing that this guy was wrongfully executed. What do you think? If you ask me, that is the risk of the death penalty, and even though I share stories of monsters here every week, I, myself, in particular, do not believe that the answer is the death penalty. I think there always will be a margin of error that we cannot avoid. And I also think that if they really did it, there's nothing better than leaving them in a place where they have to relive and rethink those things that they did and the people that they hurt, and kind of understand, if they can ever understand, the damage that they caused to a family, to a community, to people in showed up to save the day and find the actual killer. He did get the clothing that the baby was wearing that night as a proof that he was in contact with a real killer. Yet things don't really. It's kind of weird that the killer, chose to contact John and not the police for their reward. It could have been because they were afraid of the police and getting caught, yes. But it almost made me feel like the killer trusted this John guy. Maybe there's a possibility that he knew the guy. So, maybe this John guy had something to do with this. Maybe. The fact that this Bruno guy, the German guy that was electrocuted and charged with the murder of this baby, the fact that he did own a phone, the fact that the guy claimed to have the phone number, I don't know, it just sounds too good to be true, and at the same time doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I can't tell you if I believe that, he was actually guilty or not. But what a horrible story. I mean, what a horrible scenario of a couple of parents, just having a regular night at their home, and then all of a sudden your baby's missing, and you heard something. You didn't think it was anything crazy, and this is something that you could never imagine, and now it's missing, and it's not that's only missing, but I think that the feeling that somebody took your baby from your own home must be horrible. Anyways, thank you so much for being here today. I swear the traffic gets worse by the day, by the minute, by the month. I swear that Utah is becoming crazy. Freeways, roads, I mean, I'm talking about small roads full of traffic at all times. So, I apologize, but I can't really control that. It's either this background noise or going back to the library and laugh with the library people while they're talking in the background. Here you'll hear a little snoring and moving around of puppies and a bunch of traffic. But I hope that you can still enjoy this video. Thanks for being here today. Come back tomorrow where I'm gonna do part 2 of this little mini series, and we're gonna talk about Patty, who was kidnapped, assaulted, and brainwashed, and then she ended up in prison. Yep. I don't know if you know her story, but that will be tomorrow's case. Thanks again, guys, for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day. I think you're gonna be seeing this video on